A few months ago, Phil McCumpsky, the subject of one of my artist films, asked me to be the judge of an online abstract art competition that he was putting together. Although I don't think of myself as either a critic or a judge, I agreed, thinking this would be a great opportunity to see some art and to philosophize on how art is judged. But am I art judge material? It turns out that I am not, for reasons that will become clear later. But on paper, I should have made a fine judge. Experience as professional artist who entered many contests and shows? Check. A videographer who has profiled hundreds of artists of all different stripes? Check. The creator of a highly cynical movie called How to Judge Art? Check. But what manner of judge might I be? Here is the kind of judge I don't want to be. Can a person be both a good artist and a bad judge? Yes! My friend artist Joel Rundell posted this newspaper article about painter Walter Stumpfig's appalling behavior as a judge. As I read from this, let's look at some of Walter's paintings, which I think are wonderful. Stumpfig was driven to the show from Philadelphia Saturday, took one look at the entries, plumped himself down in a chair in the center of the room, and declared that everything there, save a small woodcut, was rubbish and not worth judging for prizes. According to the two other show judges who tried more than an hour to reason with him, he completely refused to cooperate in any way and shortly thereafter obtained a taxi and returned home. Yikes! So what might a good judge look like? Gregory Gillespie, an amazing artist who a long time ago gave one of my paintings a prize, wrote this in his juror's statement. As we listen to his words, I'll show you the artworks that I have been tasked with judging. Gregory wrote, "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to live and make work of art in a relatively stable time when aesthetic values seem to have been inscribed in stone. There were disagreements, I'm sure, about which works of art were the most beautiful and accomplished, but the aesthetic values themselves were not as much in dispute. Today, there are raging wars over the underlying values themselves. To make a work of art today is to proclaim where you stand in this colorful battle involving groups of critics, curators, collectors, and dealers who are all fighting for territory. As a juror, I am asked, I believe, to be open and yet closed at the same time. It is a tricky balancing act because in the studio I accept, even relish, the deeply personal and subjective nature of each decision I make. But in the public role of being a juror, my own subjective value system operates as a filter that is also a limitation. I enjoyed the process. I would like to have seen more abstract art submitted because I really like variety, both visual and philosophic. What I looked for was some spark of uniqueness or rebelliousness from the entrenched orthodoxies of all the various ideologies rampant today." Gregory Gillespie's notions about the difficulty of judging conflicting aesthetics made me think about how our canine friends are judged. In dog shows, different categories are judged separately. So little Pekingese from the toy group doesn't have to compete against a handsome golden retriever from the sporting group. I propose a few distinct categories in the world of abstract art. There's geometric abstraction, like this one from Al Held. These often have clearly articulated shapes and edges. There's abstract expressionism, like this Grace Hardigan. These tend to be quite painterly, with strong brushwork. There's minimalism, which Mondrian pioneered. There's color field abstraction, which Mark Rothko introduced. These are often quite atmospheric, with soft edges and blurry forms. There's abstraction based on organic shapes, like this great painting by Gorky. There's landscape-related abstraction, like this amazing Diebenkorn. There's architectonic abstraction, like this Cubist painting by Picasso. And there's what I think of as signal and noise abstraction, which combines both rigorously defined forms and more atmospheric passages. Both this composition by Vasily Kandinsky and this painting by English master Ben Nicholson are examples of this category. Maybe I'm a dreamer, but I don't think that different kinds of abstract artists should be fighting with each other. But that's not my decision. I'm just supposed to pick the top 20 and the overall winner. How should I do it? I thought back on how my own art has been judged over the years. Judges sometimes are thinking of the entire show as their work of art. They seek a certain theme or aesthetic. If you're a photorealist and the judge is pushing minimalism, you might get rejected not because your work is bad, but it's just not compatible with the concept of the show. Judges who happen to be artists sometimes are very much wedded to their own aesthetic and pick art that isn't too far from their own. I think both of these methods are valid, but I always preferred judges with wide-ranging tastes who really looked at the quality of each individual piece. The thing I most resented and believe is really bad is when the judge is a friend or even a teacher of certain artists, and they get in just because of that personal relationship. I was disgusted when I once heard a judge say, "That artist is a real find. None of my friends even know him." The show that I am most proud of getting into was in 1990 at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I love that most of the judges were from out of state, limiting their ability to pick their friends. In the case of this show, most of the artists are from the UK, and I don't know any of them. So what and how did I decide? At heart, I am more of a participation trophy kind of guy than a ruthless winnower of artistic wheat from chaff. But there was one clear winnowing factor that I could and did employ. Phil McCumsky did not provide me with round-trip airfare and luxury accommodations in England, so I could see all this work in person. So all I had to go on were the digital photos of the submitted art. Here's a pretty good photo I took of a portrait I painted of my wife. Let me now show you how that same painting can look horrible if poorly photographed. Let's start with bad lighting. If you have glare or an intense color cast, that's not going to help you. Distorted shape. If you shoot your artwork at an angle, so a rectangular picture looks like a trapezoid. That's bad. Distracting extra stuff. This might be good for showing an interior designer what your art looks like in a home, but that clutter is not going to help you with a judge. Small pixel count. If your photo is low resolution, the viewer can't see it very well. Stretching it just makes things worse. These photographic deficiencies allowed me to eliminate some of the entries, but not nearly enough. So I needed help. I made a list of the 65 entries and marked a J next to any that particularly caught my eye. I then posted this video on Facebook and followed it with the same slideshow you have been seeing, but with each artwork being numbered. I asked, what are the top 5 or so that caught your eye? If possible, could you pick a winner? My friends are mostly artists or other creative people, and I have great faith in their opinions. About 60 of them weighed in. If a friend liked an artwork, I marked it with a black dot and gave it 1 point. And if it was picked as the winner by a friend, I put down a W and awarded 5 points. A like by me, marked as a J, earned 2 points. The tabulated results were fascinating. People liked examples from all my quasi-dog show categories. I believe my wisdom of a crowd of creatives resulted in excellent selections, but it was all for naught. Earlier, I pointed out that I am not art judge material. Because of my obsessive dithering on this movie, I missed the deadline to send my list in on time. And so the long-suffering Phil McCumsky had to judge it for himself. Sorry, Phil. Nevertheless, let's take a look at some of the ones my friends and I like the best. A few of you might be thinking, wait a minute, some of these have recognizable subjects. They should be disqualified. To which I respond, abstract art is different from non-objective art. Abstract art can do riffs on reality, whereas totally non-objective art cannot. But the urge to disqualify competitors is something I can understand. I once won a prize after successfully convincing the judge to get a better painting tossed out on technical grounds. My proudest moment? No, but I did get the Thomas Eakins Figure Painting Award from the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts back in 1977. Sorry, Fernando, but the rules were very clear. The painting had to be done in the school's life studios, not in your bedroom. As I am in a confessional mood, I might as well get this one off my chest as well. As I share this shameful tale, look at some art done by my Facebook friends who helped me to judge. The biggest honor and largest cash prize I ever got was a grant from the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. At last, my paintings were getting their due, I thought. But as I read the letter more carefully, it turned out I was being honored in the category of works on paper, not painting. I had accidentally checked the wrong box on the application form and fooled them into judging me in perhaps a less competitive group. How could I live with myself knowing that I was a fraud? Well, I figured if I took a postage stamp and stuck it on the back of my canvas, my painting could technically be considered a work on paper, right? After a couple days, I called them and confessed and was going to send the money back, but amazingly, they appreciated my honesty and let me keep the prize. And that brings me to my final confession. I've been accusing Walter Stumpfig of being a bad art judge, but he wasn't. Obnoxious perhaps, but not bad. Because he was honest about his judgment and refused to be bullied out of it, I now realize that makes him a very good judge indeed.